The world turns like a giant chain in which almost every country owes money to one another. The United States owes over $38 trillion. The European Union carries around $14 trillion. Japan is close to $9 trillion. Even oil-rich nations like Saudi Arabia and export powerhouses like Germany and China carry serious levels of debt. But here raise the uncomfortable question. If everyone is in debt, who is the creditor? The core truth is this: the world isn't really indebted to one single person or one single country. It is, to a large extent, indebted to itself. The system works like a closed loop. But in this era, whoever collects the interest and controls the flow of money is the one who wins. So technically, saying everyone is in debt, therefore no one really is, might sound logical. But in real life, depending on where you sit in that loop, some people grow wealthier while others sink deeper into debt. The system may rotate on its own, but the people inside it do not come out equal. It's that simple. And that harsh. Today, total global debt exceeds $315 trillion, nearly 3 times the size of the global economy. How did we get here? This story didn't start with credit cards. It didn't begin with digital banking. The idea of national debt was born in war. In 1694, England was fighting France and running out of gold reserves. The king turned to merchants and said, "Give me money now, and I will pay you interest from future tax revenues." That was the first systematic government borrowing, and to manage it, the Bank of England was created. It was revolutionary. The state could now spend money it did not yet have. In return, investors received a promise from the government, a promise that could be bought and sold. That is how the modern government bond was born. France adopted the model. The Netherlands refined it. The United States used it to finance its War of Independence and later its westward expansion. From that moment on, national debt stopped being a sign of weakness and became a sign of power. If you could borrow, you were trusted. If you could borrow, you could rule. Empires once conquered land to extract gold. Now they issued bonds to extract interest. The battlefield became the balance sheet. Fast forward to today. Global debt increases by roughly $1 trillion every 100 days. Every country borrows. Every bank lends. Every citizen is both debtor and creditor, because we pay taxes that fund interest payments, yet our pension funds also hold government bonds. So who owes whom, exactly? Let's start with the United States. Of its $38 trillion debt, roughly half is held by investors. About 2/3 of those investors are American, banks, pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies, and the central bank. The remaining third is held by foreign investors. The largest foreign holder is Japan, followed by China. So saying the US owes China is technically true, but it represents only a small fraction of the total. Most of America's debt is owed to America. The Treasury issues bonds. Banks buy them. The central bank sometimes buys them back, creating new money in the process. Citizens pay taxes. Those taxes are used to pay interest. That interest flows to investors, including the very pension funds that belong to citizens. The system is circular. And this isn't unique to the US. Japan buys US treasuries. The US lends through the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations through the World Bank. Developing nations invest their reserves back into Western bonds. It's a global chain of debt. Everyone holds someone else's IOU. It's like a poker table where everyone borrowed their chips from the player next to them. For the game to continue, no one can stand up. But the real power lies in the markets. Hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks decide which countries borrow cheaply and which pay a premium. When confidence disappears, interest rates spike, currencies fall, and governments struggle. Democracy chooses who governs. Markets choose who survives. Central banks sit at the heart of this system. When they buy government bonds, they create new money. That means the money circulating in the economy is backed by debt somewhere. There is no such thing as debt-free money. For decades, the system functioned on confidence. As long as investors believed governments would keep paying interest, it didn't matter that the principal was never fully repaid. But what happens when confidence breaks? We saw it in Greece in 2010. Debt became unsustainable. Yields soared. The IMF and the European Central Bank stepped in. But the rescue came with austerity, higher taxes, spending cuts, rising unemployment. Argentina defaulted multiple times. Sri Lanka faced fuel shortages when it ran out of foreign currency. When the system cracks, creditors suddenly become visible: the IMF, rating agencies, bondholders. But what happens next? New loans are issued. Old debts are restructured. The system restarts. Because in the modern era, government debt is not meant to be eliminated, it is meant to be rolled over. Governments do not plan to fully repay their debt. They replace old bonds with new ones. Paying interest is the real objective. The United States will never fully pay off its $38 trillion debt. Japan has been rolling its debt for decades. Investors are not waiting to be repaid, they are waiting for the system to continue. Government bonds are considered the safest collateral in the world. For banks, they are security. For pension funds, stability. For central banks, reserves. In fact, here is the paradox: if a major country suddenly paid off all its debt, markets could panic. The safest asset would disappear. Money supply could contract. Deflation could follow. The system depends on the existence of debt. But here is the critical point. Interest payments are not distributed equally. Money flows from taxpayers to the institutions that hold the bonds. Debt is not only a transfer between countries, it is also a transfer between classes. That is why global debt and global inequality tend to rise together. Creditors are not villains. Debtors are not victims. They are two parts of the same machine. But if the machine stops generating new debt, if confidence disappears, the system begins to strain. At the top of this pyramid, there is no single face to blame. It is not just China. Not just Wall Street. Not just the IMF. It is all of them, and us. The modern system has turned debt into money. Governments issue it. Banks multiply it. Investors trade it. Citizens depend on it. Once, debt meant bondage. Today, it is fuel for the economy. But that fuel is not infinite. The system rests on one thing: trust. As long as trust holds, debt can be rolled over. If trust breaks, it won't be the size of the numbers that destroys the system, it will be the loss of belief. Debt is ultimately a promise that cannot be kept forever.